Let's take a look at how we can parameterize VUE components. So before we were taking a look at defining just simple to-do custom component where we could render a static element, let's see if we can parameterize it so that we can pass it some attribute or some value, pass it to the custom component, and then use that parameter as a argument and then render it dynamically inside of the component. So to do that, we can declare properties or the attributes that are going to be passed into the component using the props property, right? And then that takes an array of all the attributes that you can pass in. So here we're declaring one called to do, and then we're using that to do argument to render the dynamic component. Then from the element, we can see that we can pass in the value for that attribute, right, by using the vbind that we used earlier. So vbind, then the name of the attribute that we're declaring in the component, and then here we can pass in either a literal string like we're doing here, right? These are the outer double quotes, and then inside this could be either a variable or it could be a literal. Here we're passing a literal string, vegetables and cheese. Or we can also pass in an object instead of just a literal string, and that object can have attributes. So for instance here we still have an attribute declared as to do, and that to do presumably is an object that has a field called text, and then here we're accessing using the dot notation. And then we can pass in an object, a JSON object, right, that has a field called text and then the value for that field. All right, so let's play around with that a little bit. So here's a view component, and instead of rendering some static content, just to do item, instead of that, we're going to declare that these components might have a property called maybe title, and then that title can then be used here to render dynamically title. Now from the actual rendering in the DOM of that component, we can pass in that attribute using vbind, and here we're going to pass in a static or literal string. It says something like learn view, then vbind learn node, and then the last one, vbind build. Great stuff. Okay, so we've saved that and then refresh. I see that didn't quite work. Oh yeah, we forgot the actual property that we're binding to. So this is title. Copy, paste that 3 times. Paste that. There we go. We have the rendering of the 3 to-do items that we're passing the title as an argument. All right, so let's make this a little more interesting. Instead of passing a literal string title, ideally this might be instead an object that we can pass in. So presumably this could be an object, and we'll call it maybe the object a to-do object. And that to-do object, one of the attributes of that to-do object might be the title of that to-do. Right, so we're going to access the attribute of that to-do object using the dot notation. So what we would be passing here is not just a literal string, but a JSON object that contains an attribute called title equal, right? And this would not be title, this would be the to do, right? Because this has to match the name of the properties that we declare. Here it is, a to do. So this is to do, same thing, to do, of which we have where the object has a field called title. This is JSON, using the JSON notation. So let's copy this a couple more times, and let's close this JSON object. Let's paste that, and let's refresh here, and it seems to be working. Let's try it out just to see that this is indeed working. Let's change a couple of values here. 1, 2, 3. Save, refresh. There it is. 1, 2, 3.